All right. No pizzas. I got it. 2020 has been a pretty awful year, but one thing that's gone very well is that the Ohio movie scene is absolutely crushing it on a national level. Here now to comment is an expert panel of movie experts who are from Ohio and they are experts. Let's talk to them. 2020 has been a crazy year, but there have been a lot of highlights in terms of the Ohio film scene. What are some things that stand out for you this year?
All in all, it's been okay. We've made some progress. We figured out how to work in times like this when people get creative and they figure out ways to work and they figure out ways to make things happen. And they do. They go out there and they make it happen.
I think the best news is we've gone virtual. We do virtual auditions now. We do virtual commercials now. We're doing virtual interviews right now as we speak. We're just transitioning into a new period.
As a movie lover, this has kind of been awful and great at the same time. The choices that you can watch, classics and new movies streaming and on demand, that has been pretty great.
Yeah, I'm going to go all the way back to January of 2020. Columbus had a really strong presence at the Sundance Film Festival. I was helping out a new initiative for Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge. The first one that's ever been done at Sundance. It was hugely successful. Literally, as we all know, right after that, everybody shut down. Production around the globe came to a halt. Some people were saying, it'll only be a couple months or something, and then we'll be back to normal. And you know what happened. So during the whole shutdown and lockdown, I did a small contest called the Stuck at Home Film Contest for Franklin County and surrounding counties. And it went over really well. And then after that, we started putting together guidelines for shooting during COVID. So that took a couple months. And I worked with several other film commissioners around the country. We heard from SAG-AFTRA about these guidelines and people started calling back about commercial shoots. And then surprisingly, we had a film shoot in August, a feature film shoot here in Columbus called They, Them, Us. And they pulled it off. They did a great job and everybody stayed safe. They followed all the union guidelines. They followed guidelines that we had set up. For 2020 being such a crappy year, people are getting back to work, but it's not like it was before, but it's slowly getting there.
What is it about Ohio that you think is so appealing to filmmakers from around the country?
First things first, it's going to be the tax credit. If we didn't have a tax credit, a lot of these projects would not be here. We have a great commercial industry here, and people stay really busy during that. Think of a lot of the companies that are based here. Hopefully, there'll be more coming up next year. We have a diverse locations portfolio, urban settings, right here downtown, and you go 20 minutes any direction, you find some rural, and then you go a little bit further out, you're really rural. I know it sounds cliche, and we talk about this all the time. It's, the Midwest sensibility, and people are just willing to help here.
Ohio is low key, we're like your hometown chicken noodle soup. We've got everything you need. We've got big cities. We've got, wooded areas. We've got great people, great actors, great crew. I think that's all you need. And we've got cheap incentives, and that's really what brings people to us.
In my experience, having made short films and feature films here in Ohio, they have a don't say can't attitude, never say die. They find ways to work. And at least in my experience with the people that I've worked with, and I've worked with some great people, there is a definite spirit of community, and we're all in this together. As corny as that may sound, it's more than necessary component with low budget filmmaking in order to be successful.
We're framing this industry as a recovery vehicle from COVID. This industry can put people to work immediately. There's a stat that says that 67% of spending on a film project is outside of the immediate production spend. So that's, again, like hospitality and transportation and that sort of thing. This is a really good recovery vehicle from COVID for the community, Columbus and the state as a whole. I think we can really push that initiative and push that fact that we could really use this industry to bounce back from this.
I know that there have been other films with a higher caliber cast. I know that Schwarzenegger was here. I know that Travolta was here. I know that Bruce Willis was here at some point. And I also know that none of those films have been released in theaters. They went straight to digital streaming format or DVD. And it had nothing to do with COVID. While our films may not have big names, who's to say that those films are any better or worse than our films?
Any comments on the fact that a movie like Killer Raccoons 2 could get pulled off in Ohio and then rise to where it did in 2020?
The best news coming out of Ohio film-wise. Is Killer Raccoons 2?
Well, I think Killer Raccoons is an amazing film. It's got action, it's got raccoons, it's got amazing Ohio actors. You know, it's got everything you need to enjoy this holiday season.
I was actually able to go to the theater, sit in a seat, and watch it without fear. The fact that you've been able to extend the run and the fun of Killer Raccoons 2 through the pandemic.
It was good to hear that it came out. It was even better to hear that it was the number one comedy for 2 weeks in America.
Your film makes no qualms about what it is or what it was, which I think is one of the joys of it. It's just pure, unadulterated ridiculousness from start to finish. And that's what I love about it.
Killer Raccoons 2 is a cinematic achievement of the highest order, locally, globally, however you want to slice it. It's silly. I mean, really, Christopher Nolan should be contacting you any second now, because you, Travis, have the power to resurrect and save the theatrical experience.
Yes, thank you, Johnny. That's the kind of positive thinking we need for 2020 to make sure Ohio movies are where they belong in history.